there are some truly dangerous vehicles out there. Whether it be the uncontrollables like the Hennessy Venom or the 427 Cobra, or the unsafe vehicles like the Chevy Corvair. But one vehicle is terrifying and dangerous in the most extreme ways. This is the bizarre, unironic history of Peel. Yes, we are actually doing this. This is not a joke. Engineering company was founded at the end of the 1940s by a man named Cyril Cannell on the Isles of Man. Yeah, that Isles of Man with a crazy motorcycle race. And for once, a manufacturer was not named after a person. It was named after a town the person grew up in. I'll take what I can get. Yes, someone actually decided to name their town Peel. And they named the company accordingly. But it wasn't a car company, not at first. You see, they were experimenting with this new thing called fiberglass. And fiberglass is used in things like boats and racing motorcycles, which is pretty common on an island with a motorcycle race held on it. However, in 1953, they decided to build a one-piece fiberglass shell on a Ford Anglia frame. And it turns out people quite liked it. It was developed into a thing called the P1000, and it was considered an early version of the kit car. Ford UK actually got interested with Peel, but apparently the Isles of Man, the government, was not a big fan of this idea and refused funding for a larger Peel factory, so the deal was cut right there. Although the P1000 would later be used by the Canadian Campbell Sports Car Company to develop the Buckleer Special. Lots of very forgotten about underwhelming cars can lead directly to the P1000's development. But it was the Manx men, their next concept, that would really start to turn the gears, no pun intended, at Peel. Cannell and one of his directors, Henry Kisak, developed their first three-wheeled prototype in 1955. It was made of fiberglass and powered by a 250cc moped engine. Only one was made, and it never went into production. But it laid the groundwork for their most famous car of them all, the P50. Cannell and Kisak once again developed a three-wheeled fiberglass vehicle, only this time it actually made it to production. It was launched at the 1962 Earl's Court Motorcycle Show as the ultimate city car, because remember, the streets in the Isles of Man are very, very narrow, so you gotta have a very small car in order to fit. And this was a very small car. It was designed to fit one person, European, not American, and one piece of luggage, again, European, not American. And it was so small it had one headlight, one wiper, one seat, and it was one-wheel drive. In fact, it holds the Guinness World Record for the smallest production car ever made at just 54 inches by 30 inches, weighing just 130 pounds. And, well, for such a small vehicle, you get a pretty small price. In today's money, it costs just $8,500 for a whole car-ish. That's actually not bad. But there was a trade-off. The vehicle is so small, the only engine that could fit was the 49cc DKW air-cooled engine from a scooter, which had a 3-speed manual transmission mounted onto it without a reverse gear. So, in order to compensate for the lack of reverse gear, they put a handle on it so you could just sort of drag it around. The result from all this magnificence was 4.2 horsepower. And, well, the 0 to 60 time could only be measured by dropping it out of an airplane, because it had a top speed of 38 miles an hour, which sounds terrifying in that vehicle. It's not very safe. The bumpers don't look like they would do much. However, despite the shortcomings on the power and performance department, it did receive 100 mpg. That is pretty damn good. Unfortunately, it was not good enough to make sales. Only 50 P50s, fittingly enough, were sold over the next 5 years, and at max only 40 employees worked in the Peel factory. And of those 50, only 28 are known to be around today, which you would think, well, you know, it's a bit of a comedy car, it's a bit rare, it'll go for maybe a few grand, right? No, one sold at 2016 auction for $176,000 for a 4.2 horsepower death machine. You could buy 2 Corvette Z06s for that, and have money to spare for gas and insurance. So, how do you come off that cult success later on down the road anyway, of the P50? Well, you double the seating capacity with the Trident. It was a successor to the P50, but even though it was a 2-seater, it was still only 31 inches wide, so it wasn't quite as small as the Peel, but, you know, one thing that it was substantially different in was the weight. It weighs some 330 pounds, which meant the top speed was even slower, at 28 miles an hour, or, well, Usain Bolt runs almost as fast as that, and he accelerates a lot faster. However, it did only sell over 190 pounds back in 1965, and they did make 80 of them, so this production was significantly increased, but it was only made for 1 year, and only 30 of those 80 are known to exist in the world. Three-wheelers didn't exactly work as Peel intended, so they went back to making fiberglass shells built on chassis, and they chose a BMC Mini. Everyone loves a Mini, so they built, well, a fiberglass shell for it, and they called it the Viking Sport. That's an awesome name for an unawesome car. But to be fair, this is the fastest car that Peel has ever made, with a 1.1 liter 4-cylinder engine, making 40 horsepower, 10 times more than the P50, and a top speed of 72 miles an hour, which means, for once, Peel has a 0 to 60 time, although the car is so rare it's only 25 were made, and so pathetic that no one has actually done a 0 to 60 time of it, from what I could find on the interwebs. Now, BMC did actually get interested in the Viking Sport by offering Peel a contract to build fiberglass minis in Chile. Yeah, that's a sentence I never thought I would hear, but there you go. Unfortunately, BMC, the owner of the Mini, was reorganized into BMH, and the deal was cut during the reorganization, which means Peel, with no cars to make, 3-wheeled or 4-wheeled, decided to go back into the motorcycle and boat business until they were eventually dissolved into West Marine in 1974. And that was the story of Peel, the quirkiest, most unsuccessful car company in the last 50 years, until they were revived out of the blue in 2010. Gary Hillman and Faiza Khan, I think, bought the Peel name and started to raise money to restart the brand. And by raise money, I mean show up on Dragon's Den, which worked, apparently, and they got some 80,000 pounds of investment for their tiny little car company. Okay. There are now 2 versions of each one of the Peel 3-wheelers in current production as we speak. with both gasoline and electric versions of the P50 and the Trident. The dimensions are actually the same, and they are road legal in almost every nation on Earth, but they have, better internals and, critically, a reverse gear, although they are limited to 28 miles an hour, so, yeah. But maybe you don't want 28 miles an hour. Maybe you don't want your plain old P50. Maybe you want to be fancy with your three-wheel death machine. Enter the 125 GT. This thing is a two-tone, three-wheel death machine that can be a hardtop or a convertible if you're even more brave. It has a new 124cc four-stroke engine, making a blitzing 8.5 horsepower. And it even has, quoting directly from the website, racing disc brakes and a top speed of 55 miles an hour, which I would never, ever go more than 30 or 20 in appeal. But this thing can do 55 miles an hour. That sounds terrifying. And for 22 grand, that must be the least valuable vehicle in the world for what you're getting. But people are buying them. They make 25 a year on average. They actually custom build each car to each specification. You can build it by hand to fit your specific country's regulations. So the US considers it a car, and it has to be registered as such. The UK registers it as a three-wheeler, the EU calls it a quadricycle, and Finland, because they're quirky, calls it a moped. Out of everything to survive the 1960s, but Peel, oh yeah, Peel is thriving now with their surprisingly profitable three-wheelers of death. I don't understand rich people sometimes, but in fairness, if I was rich, I would definitely have one of these, because it's quite possibly the ultimate comedy car, and, well, people would not look at it, would they?